Okay. Welcome everyone to the second class of the series on Chanukah, of Rabbi Nosson of Nermirov's teachings of Chanukah. We are again in the first volume of Lekutei Halachot, the Orach Chaim section, and we're in the fourth halacha, 10th subsection. In my particular volume, which is this volume, it's a annotated and commented volume. It's on page Kuf Yud Beis, which is 112. And I would like to continue with what we were doing last night, discussing, we're going to continue, where we left off. Rabbi Nosson of Nermirov basically applied an understanding that, that you might say Hellenism in a new form has reared its ugly head to attack Judaism, and that was in his days in the form of the Western European Enlightenment, Skala. And but he's not going to dwell on it too much. He just wanted to show that it has that the story of Chanukah does have contemporary relevance. And there's always the darkness that Judaism is fighting, in the world. And this darkness is coming because they're always trying to, undo Judaism. That's, all of our enemies in the name of this ideology, that ideology, this thought process, that thought process, this half-truth, that partial truth, are always trying to undo Judaism and un-Jew the Jews.
Undo the Jews.
I.e. assimilate us or whatever.
What simon are we on?
We are on we are halacha daled ois yud. In the verse, in the one that you have, it's that we learned together with, it should be page Kuf Yud Beis.
Yeah, I don't have that one here. I have it at shul. So, what halachas are we doing with now? I forgot.
It's halachas hashkamas haboker.
Hashkamas haboker. Okay.
Yeah, hashkamas haboker yud.
Yud. Okay.
Good.
I mean daled ois yud. Halacha daled ois yud.
Okay.
How far down are you?
We are. Well, you're looking on the online version.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the beginning words. Aval Hashem Yisparach Beracham of Hamerubim Hikdim Refuah Lamaka. Does that help you?
No, I won't be able to find it.
Okay. Well, okay. It's okay. So. It's probably, if you look at the halacha, it's probably about halfway through.
Yeah, if you go to Safaria and you go to the laws of morning conduct,
Yeah,
chapter 4.
I'm there already.
10. Oh, you have that already?
Yeah.
And then you go to let's see. What was the words again you said, Elchanan?
Aval Hashem Yisparach Berachim of Hamerubim Hikdim Refuah Lamaka.
We'll see if I can find that.
Okay, so Aval Hashem Yisparach Berachim of Hamerubim, but God, through His tremendous mercy, Hikdim Refuah Lamaka, He had brought forth the cure before the disease. V'osei manu nes gadol v'nifla, oz bimei Matisyahu ben Yochanan kohen gadol. And He made for us a wondrous miracle back then in the days of Matisyahu, the son of Yochanan the kohen gadol. Ara sheloi dai shehichni'o. The Pilu Malchus Yovan Harsha Mapol Gedoyla. It was to the point that it wasn't just that we had knocked down and subdued the Syrian Hellenistic kingdom and dealt them a great blow. Afgam al yedei toikef hanes shehimshichu oyer nifla ba'olam l'doiros. But also accompanying that military victory, which itself was a miracle all on its own, was against tremendous odds. We also drew down a tremendous light, a tremendous spiritual light that continued through the generations. That we have the power through the menorah, through the wick, through the candle of the menorah, to draw down this power, this light, each person into his own home. In other words, this is the light of the Beis Hamikdash you're drawing down into your own home. Could you imagine the power of when you pray in front of the Chanukah candles? You're standing, and it's like you've brought the holiness of the Holy Temple right into your own home, and right here, you could your prayers have so much more power. And that is what that light that's brought down is downloaded into us, into our minds, into our hearts, into our bodies, through a deeper comprehension of divinity. We get a deeper comprehension of divinity through the light of the Chanukah candles. It's brought down the levels into our generation's a very lowly generation compared to the generation that sat in the Holy Temple, that bowed on Yom Kippur in the Holy Temple. We're very spiritually low. We don't see open miracles anymore. We don't have prophecy like they had anymore. We don't have access to the visions of divinity like they had before, or even access to open divine providence like they had. The whole interaction with the spirituality coming from the side of holiness is on a much lower level than it was in the time of the Holy Temple. It's not as revealed as it was back then. And yet, that light, and something of that light, we draw down into our homes. We light the Chanukah candles. We draw into our lives and we light the Chanukah candles. And through that, we have a deeper comprehension of divinity through these means, through these tzimtzumim. The Chanukah candle is a tzimtzum. It's a way of bringing down to a lower level the light of the Holy Temple. Shezehu bechinas tikun hamivor sham b'hatayra hanal shekol ma shehachoyle godol b'yoser hu tzarich Rabbi godol b'yoser. That we were learning that anyone who's Rabbi Nachman of Breslov famously taught that the world says that someone who's more spiritually off needs a little bit of a little tzaddik to bring him back. Someone who's way needs a big tzaddik to bring back. Someone's way spiritually off. Just a little tzaddik, just like a little spark can light up a small amount of darkness. We need a big flame to light up a lot of darkness. So people intuitively thought that that someone who's very far off just needs a little tzaddik to bring him back to God. Someone who's very far off, someone who's very far off needs just a little tzaddik. Someone who's not so far off, a big tzaddik helps them out. But Rabbi Nachman says it's not that way. It's not that way at all. It's counterintuitive. Somebody who is very far away from God needs a huge tzaddik to bring him back. Someone's only a little bit distant from God just needs a small tzaddik. It's the opposite of what you would think. And he compares it to a physician and a patient. If a patient, the sicker the patient, the bigger of a physician he needs to heal him. Someone's extremely sick, you don't bring him to a low-level physician. You don't bring in an EMT to heal him. You bring in a major specialist. If someone is just a little sick, an EMT is enough. So that is so what he's saying over here is that this took a tremendous tzaddikim to give us the light of Chanukah for our lowly generation, to bring the light down to such a low level. So v'yia uman v'chacham k'zesh yuchal latzoi simsumim nifloim sheyair gam boy hasogas elukus ganal. Just like you need a bigger tzaddik to bring down a greater light for a lower person, so too, the lights of Chanukah that were brought down by the tzaddikim back then. There was such great tzaddikim that they designed the ritual of lighting the Chanukah menorah in such a way that it could draw down the light of the Beis Hamikdash to such a low level, right into our homes, right in diaspora. And through that, we can get a unique comprehension of divinity that we never had before. And through this aspect of the light of the Holy Temple was drawn to us through the ritual of Chanukah, through the great and wondrous tzaddikim who are of a tremendous spiritual level, who have designed for us the ritual of lighting the Chanukah candles. And through through them designing this ritual with everything spiritual that was involved in designing this ritual, they were able to draw down this powerful light to every Jew into his or her home, regardless of who the person is. Even the person's the lowest of the low. Even the person, there was a story once of a great Hasidic Rebbe who saw it was the seer of Lublin, the Chayz of Lublin. The Chayz of Lublin was a tremendous clairvoyant, and when he began his career as a Rebbe, as a tzaddik, he was able to see things going on all over the world. And he begged God, he said, listen, it's too distracting. I can't concentrate right on Torah. I can't concentrate on prayer. Do me a favor, take away a little bit of this gift. And God did his bidding, and the Chayz of Lublin was now only able to see halfway around the world. That was the limitation on the gift. He could only see halfway around. So it wasn't so distracting. His mind wasn't getting bombarded with vibes and with flows all the time, or as intensely. Okay, one day someone brought him someone's name to pray for that person. And he brought him a kvittel, a little piece of paper with the person's name. He said, Rebbe, please pray for this person. And the Chayz of Lublin, he looked at it and he said, yeah, I can't pray for him. Get that away from me. Okay, sometime later, it was the person needed to be prayed for again. Again, someone brought the name to the Chayz of Lublin. He said, wow, he's such a great tzaddik. He's so holy. He's so holy. Of course I'll pray for him. And the Chayz of Lublin began praying with his full heart for him. So someone later asked the Chayz, hasn't your reaction been kind of inconsistent? Previously, when you asked to pray for him, you refused, and you spurned the kvittel, the piece of paper with his name on it, and now you accepted it and so heartful, and gave him such a heartful prayer. What happened? So Chayz of Lublin said, you don't understand. The first time I saw him, first time he gave me the kvittel, I saw him, misbehaving. I said, I can't pray for such a person. The second time you gave me the kvittel, I saw he was lighting Chanukah candles. The moment the Jew lights Chanukah candles, like a tzaddik. So I was able to pray for him with a full heart. And that is the, so you see the power of the Chanukah candles. It so elevates the Jew when he lights it or she lights it. And Ki mevoyer bekavonos Chanukah, she'inyan Chanukah hu shemamshichim oyer haniflo, shekoilo kol hayechudim, shemamshichim oise lemata, dahainu lemata me'asar tvachim. It explains in the teachings of the Kavanos of the Arizal, the Ari HaKadosh, the Holy Arizal, who was one of the leading Kabbalists of all time, one of Judaism's most famous mystics. He left behind, through his disciple Rabbi Chaim Vital and the son of Rabbi Chaim Vital, Rav Shmuel Vital, teachings on what divine names to meditate on to accompany what rituals, and called kavanos, or modern Hebrew or Sephardi Hebrew kavanot. And one of the techniques in meditating on these divine names is to unify the divine names. You interlock the letters. Let's say here you have the name Yud Ke and Hey and Vav and Hey, and here you have the name Adnai, Aleph, Daled, Nun, and Yud. You interlock the letters and you focus your mind on those names interlocked, and that unifies different spiritual forces, which you then draw down into the world, into the physical plane. That's called Yehudim. That kind of meditation is called Yehudim. You visualize divine names interlocked, and you draw their force down into the world. And different rituals have different Yehudim. Now, obviously, this is for people who are advanced students of Kabbalah. This is not for our class, but you should be aware that it exists. You should know what it is. So, Reb Nosson explains that the tremendous light of Chanukah is included in the unity of three different unities of divine names, and one draws them down into this world lower than 10 handbreadths. Lower than 10 handbreadths means really down, low into this world. It means it figuratively and literally. 10 handbreadths about is that. It's about 4 inches. So 10 handbreadths is about 40 inches high. Ideally, one is supposed to put the menorah lower than 10 handbreadths. Unless there's a problem that nobody outside will see it, or there are other issues. But ideally, if one could help it, one should put the menorah lower than 10 handbreadths.
And
which is
above
40 inches. Now, that's literally.
Right.
That's the way the ritual is ideally conducted. Figuratively, lower than 40 handbreadths means really down below. 40 inches is not so high. It means really down below, really down into the physical world. Not that we're drawing light from one spiritual world down to another spiritual world. No, we're drawing the light down all the way down for all the spiritual worlds until it reaches down into the lowest point of this physical world. That's how one is. That's what lower than 40 handbreadths represents. Now that is very unique. Nosson is trying to say that's very unique for such a kavanah, for such a unification of divine names, because he's going to show you that unlike the Chanukah candles, the Shabbos and Yom Tov candles is a whole different procedure. We don't draw the light down. We bring ourselves up to the light. And that's what he's going to get into now. Ki b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov madlikim neiros shel mitzvah, because on Shabbos and Yom Tov you light the candles of the mitzvah, the Shabbos candles, the Yom Tov candles. Ki yazhu ikar aliyas hamalchus chochma tato hanal shehu bechinas ner mitzvah, because then the Shekhinah is elevated up into the higher realms. This is one of the reasons we do not do melacha. We don't do certain creative activities on Shabbos. One of the reasons for the strictures of things we don't do on Shabbos is in order that the mundane world falls away so that the Shekhinah can be properly elevated on Shabbos. The Shekhinah that's in us, that's part of our souls, can have some detachment from the wearisome physical mundane world, the realm of realms of impurity, and thereby elevate up to the realms of holiness. Va'oz mechamas kedusha Shabbos v'Yom Tov noiflim haklipas, and then because of the holiness of Shabbos and Yom Tov, the husks fall off. Shein bechinas arba malchios, which is the 4 kingdoms that had exiled us. That's the kingdom of Babylon, the kingdom of Persia, the kingdom of Greece, and the kingdom of Rome, which we're still in. We're still in the Roman exile. It happened is that Rome transformed into a religion. It went from being a political empire to becoming a religious empire. And you could say the turning point happened, I would think, the main turning point that happened when the German tribes invaded Rome at some point in the 400s, and the Roman emperor could not negotiate with the German tribes to turn back. Who negotiated on behalf of the Roman emperor with the German tribes? It was the Pope. So we see that the power was transferred from an empire to a religion. So we are still in the Roman exile, hence the Roman ... And other versions and branches of that particular faith that come from there.
What's kalipot?
Klipot are husks.
Or what?
Husks. That means blockages.
Oh, okay.
Like a husk blocks. A husk is something that keeps you from getting at what's inside it.
Okay.
Shell, yeah.
Like it's a shell. A klipa could be a shell. It could be a peel. In modern Hebrew, it's often used to mean a shell or a peel. But the idea is it's a spiritual blockage. That's the idea. It blocks the flow of spiritual energy from reaching the Jew. It blocks the flow of holiness, of holy spiritual energy from reaching the Jew. That's what it does. It interferes with the waves. Why does it interfere with the waves? What does it get out of doing that? That's another discussion. But that's what it does. So these klipot, these husks, they fall away when these interferences, these blockages, they fall away when a Jew desists from work on Shabbos and doesn't engage the mundane world anymore. And umalchus de kedusha oila mi b'neihem. And then when one is lighting the Shabbos candles or the Yom Tov candles, the Shekhinah, the kingdom of holiness, which also means the Shekhinah, arises from amidst the impure forces. Oz me'ira ba'or gadol, and then it illuminates with a tremendous light. Shezehu bechinas hadlokas neiros Shabbos v'Yom Tov, and that's what's going on when you're lighting the candles of Shabbos and Yom Tov. Shemadlikin oisa b'mekoyma be'es aliyasa, that you light it in its place at the time when the Shekhinah is being elevated, and she's becoming adorned as the Shabbos queen. Now, so there's a very big difference. You see, when you light the Chanukah candles, the spiritual light comes down to you, wherever you are. And that's why Chanukah could happen even in the midst of a workday. However, when you light the Shabbos candles, that's not the way it operates. You have to that kind of spiritual light you have to go up for. You have to allow the Shekhinah to go up for. And when we desist from work, because our souls are connected to the Shekhinah, the Jewish souls are uniquely connected to the Shekhinah, thereby the Shekhinah can ascend, because she is by us desisting from work, the aspect of us that's connected to the Shekhinah also desists from work, and thereby the Shekhinah can ascend when the Shabbos candles are lit and when the holiday candles are lit. Avol b'Chanukah hadloka hu b'derech nes nifla. But by Chanukah, the lighting of the candles is a tremendous miracle. Ki oz ein la aliyah kol kach, because there's not such an elevation like there is on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Yehem yemei achoil, because these are mundane days, these are work days. Ki oz ein mis batlin haklipa shehem abar malchius legamre k'mei b'Shabbos Yom Tov, because then the spiritual blockages, the klipot, the spiritual blockages, which are the influence of the four kingdoms that had exiled us, is no longer, is not nullified. Unlike Shabbos, it's still there. On Chanukah, on the regular day of Chanukah, the blockages from the influence of the four kingdoms are there, and still we draw down a tremendous light to the Shekhinah. V'afal pichein anu madlikim haner hakodesh hazeh shekoil kol hayechudim. Still, we light this tremendous holy light that includes all the spiritual unifications of divine names. Shehu bechinas hamshachas hasogas alilkus al yidei hatzimtzum, which is the aspect of drawing down the comprehension of divinity through the tzimtzumim, through the constrictions, examples of this would be when a tzaddik tells over stories that simple people could understand in order to bring them to greater comprehension of certain concepts, or when sometimes there was a story that there was one that the first Lubavitcher Rebbe had the power through melody to make people understand things. They didn't have to be intellectual. He was able to get people to understand things just through melody. Melody did something to their minds and souls that opened their souls, that the answers came to them. There was a story once of the Alter Rebbe, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, that he was invited to speak to a group of tremendous Torah scholars who opposed the Hasidic movement. They were, the Hasidic movement was a new movement at the time, and people weren't trained in that style. And he came to the city abroad, where there was a tremendous congregation of people who came, who were skeptical about the Hasidic movement, but they heard that he's a tremendous Torah scholar. So they wanted to hear Torah from him. And he addressed the gathering, and he duly impressed them with his Torah scholarship. And then one of them asked a very, very deep question, a fair question. And instead of answering them immediately, he led them in a melody. By the time the melody was finished, nobody had a question anymore. He had the power to draw down knowledge through melody. It's just amazing to think about. So the tzaddikim, they have all sorts of ways of bringing down the depth of Torah through parables to the masses, through parables. These are all tzimtzumim. These are like bringing the light down, like, through parables, through stories, through melody, through poetry. I mean, through joking, through gesture, they have all sorts of ways of bringing it down. But but the idea is that lighting the Chanukah candles also is a means of bringing down the deeper divine comprehension to people like us who are so far away from the days of a holy temple, from the days of prophecy, from the days of so far away at the back end, but hopefully in the front end we're very close to it. Anyways, we have about 4 minutes for questions, comments. Anyone want to share anything?
No, I followed you on the English, but because I can find you on the English, but I thought you were going to share the screen. That's what I thought you might do, but.
Oh, I'm reading it from my book.
Oh, okay.
It just works better for me because that's how I learned it.
Okay.
I just flow better when I read it from my book. But you found the English helpful, Carol? I mean, sorry, Rebecca?
Yeah, I find looking at the English while you're talking helpful. I mean, I found it because you said Mattathias, so it was easy to find in the English.
Okay, great. And you found that it was pretty. What I said was pretty consistent with what you read.
Yeah, pretty consistent.
Okay, yeah, I do put in my own style a little.
Yeah, you put in your own commentary. Yeah.
Well, some of my translation technique is I'm trying to avoid tougher questions from arising. I'm trying to get to the core point of what he's saying and avoiding if I were to translate literally, you probably have a lot more questions.
I was wondering on when we light Chanukah candles on Erev Shabbos, are we getting the benefit of both things? Are we having the We're having these special tzimtzumim coming down, and at the same time we're going into Shabbos, so we're going up and we're leaving the mundane world behind. So we're kind of coming together on both ends.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And that's why a lot of people that might be why a lot of people make a big deal about Shabbos Chanukah. I wouldn't be surprised, if this, because you're right, it's a convergence of both directions.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get back to Rebecca a second. Yeah, when I'm translating it from the Hebrew, I'm trying to translate in a way that raises the least possible questions.
Right.
Because there's a lot of very deep ideas interwoven, and I'm a little bit concerned about getting overly bogged down. It might impede the flow.
That's fine.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions, comments? It's open mic time. We still have a minute.
Good to see you, Anat.
Good to see you too.
Sort of.
Well, yeah. Well, she sees a big C on the screen.
Uh-huh.
She knows that represents you.
Yeah.
Us. Yeah. Us.
So she knows. Okay, so everybody, Chag Chanukah Sameach. I wish everyone a happy Chodesh Teves. Tonight's Rosh Chodesh Teves. Freilichen Chanukah, Freilichen Chodesh, and God willing, tomorrow night we'll pick up. We'll continue the fun.
Is Hanukkah the only holiday that spans 2 months?
I think so. Yeah. It's the only one that straddles 2 months.
Very
Wow.
interesting.